Iron Fist episode 12, Bar the Big Boss. Now this is the beginning of the end leading into the last episode for this first season, and I think it was pretty decent. We got to see kind of the culmination of events from really like the past two episodes. So we have, of course, Bakuto after having been pseudo defeated. I mean, he wasn't really taken out or anything, Danny just escaped. So with Bakuto having lost, his chance to basically do something, whatever he wants with Danny. We still don't really know. Like, even in this episode, it's not completely answered. It's just like, we kind of want the Iron Fist, and that's it. So, for whatever reason, him losing Danny, he ends up going after, Colleen, and it's like, hey, where'd you go? And she kind of plays it off a little bit. And he's like, okay, well, if you find Danny, let me know, and, basically do what you're supposed to do. And so that doesn't end up playing out, and everything kind of culminates into this episode where things get really crazy because Bakuto ends up teaming up with Ward. So everything having fallen apart for him before leads him back to Ward, and so he ends up working with Ward and helping him escape, and so Ward actually helps him get to Harold and Joy in order for him to get Danny again and find a way to kind of trick him or entrap him, really. And that's when things were chaotic. In the beginning, it was like, okay, I'm not sure if someone is actually going to die. Of course, he didn't really let Ward do what he wanted because he wanted to use Joy, Ward, and Harold as ways to force Danny to, go to the penthouse. And of course, it ends up working. He actually shoots Joy, which really surprised me. Like, he just flat out shot her in the stomach, and he was about to kill Harold. And we find out that he can actually be decapitated and he's done for. So if you chop his head off, he'll completely die and it's permanent. So he's about to do that. Of course, Danny gets there last minute and he's able to give himself up in order for them to live. And so that's what he does. He sacrifices himself and he goes down. He's actually able to use the Iron Fist and break out of the cuffs, although it fails on him. Like, as soon as he tries to throw the punch, it fails in midair, and it's like, oh crap. Fortunately, he had Colleen and Davos to help him out, so they take down everybody, and then it's them kind of going through the episode, and we get to see what happens from the two spectrums after this point. So we have Ward and that was one of the things I loved about this opening. After everything that Harold has done to him, Ward came out as the bad guy in this whole situation. It's like, you seem like the crazy one, and I can't believe you were trying to have Dad killed and this and that. And in his mind, it's just like, I'm the good guy here. He's kind of a dick, but outside of that first episode, he hasn't really been that much of a dick. He was kind of a dick because he was being controlled by his dad, and partly, of course, he wanted to run the company himself. But man, everything he's gone through, and it comes down to this where he's like, I'm just trying to save my sister, and every time my father dies and comes back, he's already bad, he's worse now, I have to save my sister. And he just comes out as the bad guy. Danny looks at him and is like, you did this, this is your fault. His dad's upset with him, and then Joy's like, you seem like the monster and stuff. And I'm like, wow, that really sucks. Ward just gets the shaft. This whole series, that's all Ward has been getting, is the shaft. And it was just crazy that everything he went through, he's making a plan to be the good guy, and it falls apart. His sister ends up being shot. They're all used as leverage to get Danny, and he still doesn't end up completely getting rid of his father. It's just kind of almost there. And it was just crazy. I was like, wow, all the stuff he's gone through, and he still ended up coming out as the bad guy to everyone around him. I was like, that really sucks for him. But they end up getting Joy to the hospital, and Danny, Colleen, and Davos continue on their mission, and they chase down Bakuto. So we get a really cool kind of samurai showdown between Bakuto and Colleen. Very simple fight. It was in the rain, open space. I'm pretty sure that was Central Park. And it was just very cool. It was just a really nice sequence. And, Bakuto, in some parts, he has one up on Colleen. And so he breaks her katana, and it flies in the air, and then she kicks it into his leg. And I thought that was a really great sequence. And she ends up beating him. She's able to kind of do a little spin, she ducks, and she stabs him in the stomach, so he's down for the count. And that's when things kind of start escalating, because Davos is talking to Danny, and he's like, kill him, get rid of this guy. And Colleen says not to do that because they do have enough evidence on him to actually have, a member of the Hand placed into custody and be fingerprinted and all that stuff. And it's like this will be the first time that something like this ever happens, and that's when Danny and Davos start arguing. And Davos takes out the blade and he ends up killing, maybe for the first time, because Danny does reference the fact that Harold came back to life. It wouldn't surprise me if Bakuto kind of had the same thing and he had that cure, or if because they do mention the fact that Harold had to die for real in order to be brought back to life the first time. So maybe Bakuto didn't have whatever this mystical drug is within his system. So maybe they'll do that in order to bring him back to life this time, and we'll see him, in the future of one of the other shows. If he's not in the Defenders, maybe just in Iron Fist Season 2, or however that's going to work out. But it was like, okay, he ends up being taken, but before that, we of course have Davos and Danny fighting. And I knew that was going to happen. I was like, there's no way in the world that Davos is just going to leave. There's just no way, like, considering how absolutely opposite the two of them have been, where Danny is like, there is a bit of free will, like it's possible to have that, and he's conflicted, and Davos is just 100% Kunlun and being like absolutely indoctrinated still. I knew they had to come to blows at some point, so of course they have their fight sequence, and Davos is definitely mad. It has really nothing to do with Kunlun, it's just he was mad that Danny left him. And I thought they were going to get into like a relationship thing for a second, where it was like they were actually together, they were more than just friends, because it kind of seemed that way a little bit in the other episodes. And I was like, that could just be how it seems, but that's not really it. So I didn't say anything, and I was just waiting to see how that was going to play out. And I guess it really was that way. It was just kind of how the actor was doing it as Davos. It just seemed like it was a little bit more than friends, and it didn't feel like it was him having outbursts. It felt more like him being upset that someone that he loved left, and that still could be the case because they were like brothers, and they were best friends from such a young age. So it still makes sense that he would be so upset, especially with the extra combination of like, you were my best friend and you left, plus you left with what I felt was my birthright. So it kind of makes sense. It just seemed like the way it was acted, I was kind of expecting there to just be the reveal that they were actually together for a little bit of time, or just to get just actually together, until Danny was like, well, I'm out of here, and he takes off. But it was just a friendship thing. They were just really great friends. And so Davos he gets beat up, and he's almost killed because Danny kind of snaps a little bit, and he utilizes that anger. I mentioned that before. He didn't learn it, where it was like, I have to channel my my anger, and I can, or just focus on my emotions, and I can still do it. But he was definitely angry in that moment, and his arm lit straight up. And so I'm like, well, there you go. Like, he was 100% angry. It had nothing to do with confliction. He was just angry. And, his fist lights up, but he, of course, doesn't end up doing it. So Davos is like, there's going to be consequences, and this isn't over. That, kind of typical cliffhanger sort of deal. So he takes off, and that's when Colleen and Danny end up finding out that Bakuto's body is gone. So the hand came in, took his body. Maybe we'll see him resurrected. And that's when we find out that Ward is warning Danny. He finds out from his dad, like, oh, Danny served his purpose and stuff, whether regardless of who lives or who dies, Danny's kind of done. So somehow, I don't know what the heck he did, but somehow Harold ended up setting up Danny with some actual illegal thing, because the DEA came in. It wasn't just like the random guys in suits and stuff in the combat outfits. So for whatever reason, the DEA is after Danny, and so Danny and Colleen have to beat up the DEA, and then they just take off down the street. Because I'd seen that sequence before, and I think it was one of the thumbnails. I think the thumbnails change sometimes for the episodes, and I think I'd seen that once, and I was like, man, I wonder what they're running from. And I was like, that makes sense now. Like, they were just booking it down the road because the DEA came after them. So I'm not sure exactly what Harold did, or what he lied about. But I'm sure there's some damning evidence that he just twisted a little bit, and it's like, yep, that was totally Danny Rand that did that, with a horrible person. And so that's why you have an actual government agency and not just a secret ninja clan coming after them. So we're going into the final episode of this season. I really don't know what to expect. I mean, Harold's died already in the show, so I don't know if they'll actually kill him at the end of this episode. But that's kind of the main villain, unless Bakuto does come back in this next episode. That's, Harold is kind of the main villain, so I'm really not sure what to expect as far as how this is really gonna wrap up. But I am looking forward to it. I don't know, all that honking outside. I don't know if you guys could hear that. It sounded like somebody was real close to crashing. But going into the season finale, I am looking forward to seeing how this plays out and what sort of cliffhanger ending we do get from it, leading into, of course, the Defenders. But this was a decent episode. Like I said, the past couple episodes have been fairly decent. This one, unfortunately, I had to watch it like 2 parts, so I watched like most of the episode yesterday, and then I watched like the last 19 minutes of it today. So like I'm trying to remember like every small little detail, but I think I pretty much got everything. It was mostly just a lot of running in action, and it was kind of all the talky stuff really was in the very beginning, and then it was like once they got got to the lobby of the hotel, it was kind of just fighting and running after that, just chasing people down, and then having like cool final raining showdowns and stuff. But decent episode. I am looking forward to how things are going to play out in this finale, and what in the world Danny could possibly do in order to prove his innocence and stuff like that. So I don't know where things are headed, but of course we'd love to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below, let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and naturally I just want to know, what do you guys want to see from this season finale? There are a couple of things that they can do. There are, of course, the ways it can end, and I'm just curious how it's going to end, because I think at least as far as Daredevil and Jessica Jones, I really like those endings. As far as Luke Cage, I kind of hated the ending to that season, and it's mostly because it's like this big climax is the beginning of the episode, and then the rest of the episode is just a normal episode, and then it ends, and they're just talking the whole way through until the very ending, and it goes like, alright, that's how it ends. And I was like, they did a lot of like, the intense stuff was at the very beginning, and then after that, you know exactly what's about to happen. And it's just like, alright, that's where it's going to end. And it was just like a lackluster ending where it just, all the climax of it, of like the season finale, was literally the first like 5 to 10 minutes of the last episode of the season. And then after that, it just felt like a normal episode. So I kind of hated the way they ended Luke Cage. So I'm curious to see how this is going to play out with the whole episode, I would assume, or most of it at least, I'm hoping, is going to be Danny and Colleen being chased down, and then we have to see how Ward reacts, where it's like, alright, I want to kind of play things where it's like my dad thinks I'm on his side, depending on how long that lasts with him being weird and crazy. So I'm going to let my dad think I'm on his side, but I'm going to try to find a way to help Danny and Colleen, which may or may not end up in Ward being, or Ward killing off Harold, or someone else doing it now that everyone knows his weakness and how to get rid of him permanently. So it's hard to say if he'll actually die, if Harold will actually die at the end of this, but I mean, otherwise they still have that villain, so I feel like he has to die by the end of the season, and then they actually get rid of both villains, and Bakuto can come back as a part of the Hand in the Defenders. So that's why I feel like they're going to play that. Bakuto won't show up in this, and we'll see Harold as the main villain until Danny's finally able to reach him, and then maybe he'll just punch his head clean off or something like that. I don't know, but that's kind of my guess for how they're going to end it, but I just want to know what you guys want to see from the ending. And of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.